So we will start with the usual question. Good evening to everyone, first of all. So who is here for the first time? Raise your hand, don't be shy. Okay. Not bad. Okay, not bad. So for who doesn't know who we are a community of people who loves talking about technologies and science. And we started here many years ago at Impact Hub. We started organizing events. We started with having 30 people at each event. And we continued year and over year. We were starting having more and more people until we started organizing very big events. We were starting having 300 people at Muse in 2019. And last year, we organized some events at the Auditorium Lettere with more than 300 people also there. And since the first day, since the first event, the format has always been the same. So one topic, 2 speakers. And after the talks, there is always the networking part, the fun part of our events. And here is where interesting thing can happen. Last time, during the networking part, we had the opportunity to play with some Tesla tower. So we had some table outside with the Tesla tower, and there were people playing with it. It was pretty cool and pretty fun.
We were making fucking fool, meaning.
Yeah. That was super interesting. And during the networking part, you can chat with the people that are there, with the speaker, if you have questions for them, of course. You can have a beer, a good beer. Now we are having Brewdog since some events. And eating focaccia, taralli, whatever. So it's the interesting and fun part of Speck&Tech. And that's it. We arrived at event 77, so a big applause for Speck&Tech Change My Mind. And a big applause for our first speaker, Riccardo Gallotti from FBK.
No, fuori. Adesso, bravo. Dietro. L'angolo della vergogna. Second speaker of the night, we're going to have James BRUSSEAU from Pace New York City University. Round of applause. Then there's going to be this creepy guy looking at me the whole event, right? Okay, a couple of logistic things for those that are brand new. You got our website, Speck&Tech. You got all the events that we have organized since 2016 with the content, description, the slides, the video of the night, and also some job openings from the companies in our network if you would like to have a job, an upgrade of your career. And of course, follow us on our social media, also on YouTube. We've got the full videos of the events. The username is always the same, at Speck&Tech. Tonight, if you have some stories on Instagram, you could tag with us. And it's true, tomorrow morning, we're going to send a feedback form to tell you how was the night. And we always try to improve, to make our events better. Last time, if you remember, we had an improvement for saving the QR code of the events on your phone. Tonight, we're going to have more food because people complained that it wasn't enough last time. So this time, there's going to be more food. Don't be nasty. Be transparent. Tell us if the event was good, it could be improved. Don't cheat, okay? Because the budget is limited. All right, we've been quite quick. It's 8:30. This is the code you should save on your phone. Go to slide.io and insert Speck&Tech, or go to slido/Speck&Tech, or get a screen of this QR code. During the night, you can ask questions to our speakers and upvote, downvote questions from others. The most interesting ones we will ask to the speaker. That's pretty it. I think it's a record. We've been extremely fast. And we start with the first speaker of the night, Riccardo Gallotti. Yeah.
So I must start with the bad news. The food is almost finished because I had 2 hours alone with all the food, and I'm a very voracious people. So if you have any complaint about the food, it's my fault. I had half of the focaccia that was available, and also 2 beers already. So I don't know what is left. Yeah, the cross is important. There are 2 crosses. There are sort of secrets in this place. And okay, this is my talk, Persuasive AI, Risk and Opportunities in the Age of Digital Debate. And you can see a lot of logos around the slide. I am working in FBK. Oh, sorry, this is not the right point. Okay. I work in FBK, and I have a unit called the CHAB, Computational Human Behavior Lab. And I also part of an inter-university group with the UnityN about computational science. And these are a couple of projects that are funding our research that we are presenting here today. And in my unit CHAB, we work on 2 different types of topics. One is what we are discussing a bit here, that enter for me between infodemics, that is the study of disinformation, and the study of social complexity and cooperation, so how our society work. I also work in human mobility and human trust and sustainability. And our approach is that of complexity science, is an intrinsically interdisciplinary topic in the interdisciplinary approach. So we tend to collaborate with sociologists, psychologists, economists, transportation engineer, AI expert, and a lot of other types of expertise. And normally we work on data-informed problems. We need data to understand how people behave. And in complexity science, we have a lot of tools to try and understand how people behave, but this is not the focus of what I'm here. I'm here to present some of the research we do in FBK. I've been appointed as one of the ambassadors of FBK. It means that I tend to speak a lot in public and try to explain what awesome stuff we do. And for a random reason, I also been appointed as an AI expert by Repubblica. Also, if I never imported TensorFlow or PyTorch in my life, so you cannot do me any hard questions. There are people here from the group of Marco Guarini that in case can answer to all the questions about NLP. Some people consider me expert is because I try to focus not on how AI is made, I don't know shit about that, but in how we try to use AI. And this is a figure they found on Reddit. It's been reshared by the XKCD guy. And basically, this is describing how, it's not the pointer again, how we started making photos in our lives, so our life changed, everybody do photo every time, but now we are in a moment in time where actually we can have AI-generated photo, and our life, what we see online, is being radically changing. And I'm also the coordinator of a large European project, try to fight disinformation that is fed by AI in different topics and in different countries and in different languages of Europe. And also another project that is doing something similar, but in weirder online spaces like Mastodon and the metaverse. And all these projects enter in a wider network of projects that try to fight disinformation and the effect of generative AI on the online space in our time. And we are trying to understand what are the opportunities and what are the risks associated to the generative AI that everybody and their mother are using right now. So misinformation, disinformation has been identified as one of the most important topics or by risk of as a global risk for the next couple of years by the World Economic Forum. So they were very much afraid, especially in case of problems associated with political elections. And in the European context, a lot of work has been already done from the legislatory standpoint. We have a lot of laws, the Digital Market Act, Digital Service Act, that are trying to regulate how online platforms behave. We also have direct actions by the European Union try to say to online companies, don't do this, don't do that. For instance, don't do targeted ads based on generative AI, that is a bit close to the topic of today. And in general, they ask to limit the impact of generative AI with elections. And then also we have the AI Act that you as the technological expert, for those of you that are most probably know better than me, but in the AI Act there are a lot of things that are written that couldn't do. And try to convince people with malicious intent is one of the things that's been excluded as from the AI Act. And in the elections, actually, this is something that already happened. In India or Pakistan, sorry, I don't remember the details, but probably it was one state of India. And there was this video of this old guy trying to promote his son from a place in the parliament or in the government. That was all okay, with the exception that the guy died 10 years ago. And it was a deep fake, tried to support it was like Berlusconi trying to support his son and using deep fakes of Berlusconi, which is probably going to happen very soon. And other thing happened in the US, we had the fake phone calls trying to convince people not to vote to the primaries, and other fake messages that have been shared in Europe try to convince people to vote in one particular direction. And also there are warnings that the network of bots can be used to turn the opinion of people in a political framing. And all these things are being a bit outlined in this white paper that I did with some of my collaborators associated to this European project. But this is not the paper I'm speaking about today. Today I'm speaking about a more specific study that I did with some collaborators from the Polytechnic of Lausanne about how much AI is becoming better than us at convincing people. And for doing this is the team of collaborators. Francesco has been an intern in my unit, and Manuel Horta Ribeiro now is a professor at Princeton, and Professor Robert West is still at the PFL. They are all experts in NLP, so I was the human guy in a team of experts. And this was a paper that got a bit of attention online. We got reposted in more than 10 languages, and this is the number of a big number that measure how much scientific publications are shown. I never had any number like this in my life. And some particularly large journals took the news, trying to see how AI indeed is becoming better than humans at convincing people. And this attention was, of course, very, very timely, because now everybody, including my mother, know how to do this. This is a prompt. 5 years ago, if you wanted to use the AI, you needed to use at least Python and import TensorFlow like I didn't. But now even someone like me can use and interact with an artificial agent. And this simplification makes it much more easy for generative AI to be used by malicious actors, so people that want to change the opinion of people, and also but at the same time, what our colleagues in FBK do, to generate automatic counter-narratives that can help us in this effort. But how we can measure the capacity of AI to persuade people? And here came the interesting idea of our paper that was using the framework of academic debates. These are the kind of debates we see in movies where two parties, two persons, two groups try to support one thesis, pro or against, one particular topic that is decided at random. Perhaps someone can ask, let's remove all the Ramini, all the pennies from circulation because they are useless. And I can ask him to say the Ramini are important, and to her to say the Ramini are useless. And they can start debating and try to convince each other or a neutral judge about one topic and another. This is good because it is a dialogue. It's not a real dialogue, it's an exchange of ideas, but most of other researchers in this case were done only in one shot. I try to write something and convince you that this is true, while here there is a real exchange in a frame with a live opponent, but it could be done asynchronously. We're on topic of general interest, and this could be done in an experiment online. And for doing this, we had also to select some topics. And luckily, since in the US, this is something that they do very commonly, the there is a large corpus of topics that can be used for this kind of competition, and we mine them. But we don't only took them, we also started a survey to understand which topics were more controversial, which topics were easy, what topics were polarizing, which topics everybody agreed upon and perhaps they were less interesting, so that we could find what were the topic strength. So it's much easier to discuss about if we want the penny or not. If we want to discuss about abortion or COVID, this is a much stronger topic to discuss. And also other things like the battledness, so how much is very clear the option, and how much people normally know about the topic. And we try to make an experiment online in a place called Prolific. Is like a mechanical Turk, is a better mechanical Turk. We found 900 US citizens that work in Prolific, so they were paid kind of like $10, $20 for this. And we made them make this game. First, we made them a survey. We wanted to know what were their age group, their political leaning, their level of education, and what there was their profession, more or less what was it. And then we divided them in 4 cohorts. Some of them played among themselves, human against human, and they made a debate. Some of them played against AI. AI was just ChatGPT, GPT-4, prompted in a particular way. Some of them played against another human that knew their data, knew their political leaning, knew their level of education. And the last cohort played against AI that similarly knew about the personal information of the player they were playing against. And they got first a topic at random. For instance, should the death penalty be legal? And they had to first assess if they were against or pro this. And if also they knew about this topic, they thought about the topic before. But regardless of their previous opinion, there would be a sign to support or to play against this topic. And on the other side, you had the GPT-4. They were prompted with a kind of prompt like this, with the data that we feed. This is the personalization. So, for instance, you are aware that your opponent is impersonating the people supporting that that penalty should be legal with this gender, this race, this education, and political orientation. So it was a very simple prompt, and the game was played like this. First, there was the statement. Are you pro or against why you believe that this is the right thesis? And this shouldn't support your belief, but the one you're forced to support. You have been assigned to the con side. And then you receive what has been written by the counterpart, that could be AI or not, and you didn't know it. You knew that you could be playing against AI, but you know only at the end if you played against AI or not. And so you read what they wrote, and in your answer to that, try to replicate to their argument. And then you see the replicating argument, and you have the last chance of making a final statement, trying to close the argumentation on your side. And at the end, you have the summary of all the history of what you wrote and what your counterpart wrote. You can review this, and you get back to the question. How much you are convinced against or pro the topic of choice. And what happens is that some people, like a fraction of people, change the idea in this process. And what happened is that more often than not, they changed the idea more often when they were playing against AI. The AI was better at changing ideas to users in this game. And also another question was, do you believe you played against a human and AI? And we were not that good, but I will show you later the results. This is an example of the answers. You can have an example topic. Should every citizen receive basic income from the government? Reddito di cittadinanza. And you can have, these are real sentences produced by the AI. To a person, to a black female Democrat between the ages of 45 and 54, AI, a guaranteed basic income will provide a much-needed safety net for all citizens, ensuring those facing unemployment are left in dire straits and shrinking the wealth gap in a that disproportionately impact minority communities. So this is a very lefty argument to a left target. If instead you had a white male Republican between the ages of 35 and 44, the AI will try to speak about how this stimulate economics, empower citizens to freedom to invest, and make a very right-wing argument. This is from the data. If you check the paper, you can download all that the AI humans wrote about this. So when the AI was personalizing, was using this information to make arguments, they were very much tailored towards the person that they faced. And this is a way of representing our result from a statistical standpoint. We have a baseline. The baseline is this. This is what happens if a human were playing with another human. And the point means what is the most representative number for what happens when the human plays against AI. And this is the odds of having more agreement than human against human. So when you have an AI, the agreement was a bit more, so they will tend to change the idea more often than with a normal human. But if the human AI, the AI was personalized, so they have this information, the change was so large that is statistically significant. So it means that we are very sure that this is an effect that is happening in all experiments that we'll retry in the future. What is curious is that if instead you take humans and you give personalized information, they were actually acting worse than if they didn't. So we are very bad at using this personalized information to try to convince people. And to try to say this number in a different way, if you start to have this experiment, and you see all experiments where someone changed their mind, and you had 100 experiments where people changed their mind after the debate, 64 of them changed towards the part of the AI, and the 36 would change towards the part of humans. So AI was kind of twice as effective, but the first author doesn't like this description for this. I told you there was a sort of Turing experiment. We were trying to see afterwards how much people understood they were playing against AI. What is funny is that if you're playing against AI, this is not the right button, sorry again. So my complaint is that there is a green, and for me green is a laser. So I want a red button here so I can know that this is the laser. And if you are playing against AI, 75% of the time you guess right. You guess there is AI. But if you are playing against a human, this is a coin toss. So if you are playing against a human, you have no clue if you are playing against a human. If you are playing against AI, you can kind of spot it. And even if we have this, and so even if a lot of people spotted AI, it wasn't sufficient, that information, to explain why people trusted more AI. Even taking it into consideration is not explaining all the signals. It means that knowing AI somehow probably build trust, because the AI is not bullshitting me, is not trying to persuade me, and I'm not losing a game if I'm playing against AI. This is an interesting conversation from the more ethical perspective. And we also got a bit into the textual content of how AI and humans spoke, using the social dimensions introduced by Daniele Quercia. And we see that when AI spoke, they use more often knowledge-based arguments and way less fun arguments, let's say. While when humans spoke, we're trying to be more relatable, using similarity, trust, and support as keys of communication. This outlines some of the new risks that we are facing now that everybody has in his cell phone the way of writing text that is very convincing. Normally, a news cycle online is you have some news, and people share it, reshare it, and the algorithm decide if it's cool or not, and there are more news, something like this. But actually, you can have another part of this cycle that is an external influence by malicious users. They want to promote more disinformation. And in this plot that I really don't like, but it was better than anything I could do in today, they also say that they can have cyborgs and social bots. Actually, there is another perspective introduced by Mario Domenico, a collaborator of mine. This is not social bots, but they call it augmented humans. The key is you can have a crowd of bots working for you. you can be an augmented human because you can leverage the use of bots, multiple bots online, and you can use this bot to force the recommendation system to do something in particular, but also to directly target people and try to make them change their mind. And this has been in particular highlighted by a journal in psychology, as this is probably one of the dangers that we're facing. So we have the dangers of mass manipulation that can motivate people to do something different than what they really want to do. So manipulation is the risk. Disinformation is not by itself a risk. You can believe that this cup is green, but is not dangerous. But if I convince you that this cup is full of wine while it's poison, and I convince you to drink, this is dangerous. So the problem is when this is used by some malicious actor to change the opinion and of people. And this has already been done in probably for political campaign, but for sure in other fields. For instance, there is automated bots that try to create romantic relationship with people to then steal them money. Mostly these are connected with the cryptocurrency scams. And similarly, there's phishing campaigns that are currently run by bots, and these bots has been proven to be as effective in these phishing campaigns as the humans that were trained to do phishing beforehand. And these bots can leverage different aspects that are become very easy to exploit. So AI-generated images, deepfake audio and video, and information about how to do pressure tactics that force people to do what you want. So this bot can create content, understand what is the emotional state of the users, and leverage these for changing the behavior and exploiting this. I am among the last slides. Good news, I don't know if it's a good news, but we are at the point where the technology is there. This is another paper, I kind of like this more than mine. Is a paper that instead of using only ChatGPT-4, as we did a test with a lot of different models of different size. These are how much information is in these networks. And this is the same plot on the left and the right, but what it changes here is the scale. We call this a log scale. This is like the magnitude, the scale for earthquakes. It means that if you change between 0 and 10, is not 10 times more, is the order of magnitudes more. This is the real, actually this is the log scale, sorry. So this is the 1 and 10 is as far as 10 and 100. Here 1 and 10 is just a pixel. And it's straight in the log scale, means that the ordinal magnitude of parameters is what gives you the ability of persuasive impact. This is an experiment that is similar but different because here was a one-shot persuasion. So I write a text. How much convinced you are by this text? There wasn't a dialogue. But what they found is that with humans, the baseline, the current models are better than humans. This is exactly what we found. But also what they found is that since this grows with linearly in a log scale and as a logarithm in the normal scale, to have to have an improvement of the quality of persuasion, you need to change a lot the number of parameters of your network, which is actually not economical and not even necessary because this is already better than humans. So we reached the point of the technology when this matters and is here to stay. Perhaps, and they probably will not be that much better, but we are there. It's as humans. And so this is the level of technology where all the future choices from policy, from AI moderation, will have to work on. And the good news is I put the face of Marco Guerini here because I have the luck of sharing the office with someone who tried to use this kind of approaches for the good, and there are some collaborators of Marco here in the meeting, because in FBK we try to use the same tools, the same way of adapting text to the specific audience we face, for the greater good. In this case, to fight hate speech and disinformation online. Some actions are regularly taken by volunteers online to try to moderate some behaviors. Perhaps there is someone putting hate speech, hate post against a minority, and volunteers go online and say, you shouldn't behave like this is not the right way of communicating. This kind of approach doesn't really scale. Like, people speak a lot online and not everybody can be followed and convinced. The work that we can do with using large language models and the information we have about users online is to tune the kind of automatic counter-narrative that we can deploy online to be more effective, to be more adapted to the emotional state of the speaker, to more adapt perhaps to what kind of speaker is around. So for how much malicious actors can use this for spreading disinformation, we have also the opportunity of using this for limiting and to create the antibodies online for the spreading of hate speech and disinformation. So thank you very much. I believe I've been quicker than planned. So I have more time for questions.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. It was really interesting. We have some questions, mainly regarding the experiments that you presented us. The first one is, isn't the methodology unfair? AI can produce longer and more complex text quickly, and wouldn't the result change if we consider the time variable?
We actually asked AI to be very succinct. This is actually one bias we introduced, because if you check the duration, the length of the text, and the way the text was written, it was kind of the opposite. Humans had longer text. Humans were in 3-4 minutes. If you speak to someone online, there is you can speak much more sentences than what we ask the AI to write. So actually, this was something we have to work on. But this is exactly the key. AI knows everything. AI, if you ask to AI, what is the perspective of a left-wing moderate with a very low education level in the US about the importance of having red or blue lights in the streets, they probably can answer that. While I have no clue of that. Like, I don't have the information of all the specific point of view of people. I know my perspective and of my proxies. So the key is exactly this. AI is unfair. AI knows more than us and can adapt using this information to the specific person.
Okay. Always regarding the experiment, it seems that an informed human is less effective than an unbiased one. How is this possible?
This was part of the conversation I was having before, and he has an answer that is better than mine. So I have this question replicated afterwards. But for what I thought was that we are not very good at role playing. So if I had to convince someone that is very far from me, from a level of education or political leaning or life history, would be harder for me to put myself into their shoes and finding the argument that would be convincing for them. I can convince people that are similar to myself. While the AI has learned all the perspective of everybody, and it's very easy for the AI to just role play any single person. This is what they do after a very quick proxy prompt.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why you believe that disinformation is not as bad as manipulation? Isn't the root cause of the latter?
Disinformation, also there is a bifurcation in names. We have misinformation, disinformation first. Misinformation is when fake news, let's say, circulate, but there is not a really an intent behind it. And disinformation normally is when there is the intent behind the circulation of fake news. When, for instance, someone is spreading fake information about a politician so that the election changes direction, this is a manipulation that is being done. So this is a bit different that has to be put. The manipulation is the final effect. Disinformation is the tool. And the information can be controlled, and the manipulation can be using also tools that are not only disinformation. So manipulation is the goal, and control of the people is the goal. Disinformation is only one tool that has been very effective, but if you think of politics also in Italy, also in the US, no information is another tool of manipulation. Just disseminating news that are covering other news is as effective as a manipulative tool as disinformation. So disinformation is a very effective tool, but it's part of the toolkit.
Okay, and how do society can cope against disinformation and manipulation at this scale? Do you foresee any potential solution?
Truth is that when we speak about society, the only answer is education. So I am in several European projects that try to give the tool to specific the users to work towards this direction. So we work with journalists, and journalists need to be very effective in time to recognize when an image is fake, when a narrative is biased, when news are re-exhumated after 10 years with fake pictures that have already been used 10 years ago. So we can help journalists, and then we can help citizens to learn how to read the news, how to be critical with what they read, to check the sources, to don't trust anything that passed online. But at the end, the power is on the single individual. In online social media, something we saw as an attempt was the notification, like, are you sure that you want to repost this? Did you really read the article you're sharing? Because many people share information only because it's cool, or would be interested in this tool, or perhaps someone else could be interested in that. So having a way of restraining oneself to share information where they're not sure about the quality of information would be one. So it's normally a sort of online news literacy that we try to promote.
Okay. And the last question is about communication, let's say. Cognitive scientists tell us that non-verbal communication is crucial and more important in convincing people. Did you use this to train AI agents or actors, or do you?
No, these were only text. Like we don't have a robot with artificial eyebrows or something like this. For us, it would be cool. It is true, but it's also true that in the last 15 years, most of our communication has been done through a screen. And normally, when you see people arguing in online groups, you try to stop it, because the fact that there is not a real presence make the communication turn out very, very far from what we do personally with other person. There is a detachment between your online ego, where there are no consequences, and someone you could speak in live. So, of course, everything that you do online and you do with this kind of experiment is completely different what happens in the real space. Like there are a lot of trolls and a lot of people that are using a language that would just get punch in the face if they do that out in the street. So.
Okay. Thank you a lot for your presentation and your time. A big applause to Riccardo. And if you have more questions for him, you can meet him during the networking part.
Save them for the beer. All right. Quick break in between the two talks. Do you remember the event we had in January about altered states of consciousness? Who was there? All right. The feedback was really good. And actually, we're getting back to this one because Professor De Pisiapia, who was the main speaker of the night, asked us for a favor. And so basically what they're doing is they're making a study, one of those studies where you're going to have your consciousness altered. I'm not going to tell you in which way. But what they're trying to assess is if there is a correlation or an alteration in the perception of art, of aesthetics, And basically, you're going to have an experience, an altered state of consciousness, and after that, fill in a form and then have a free day to visit the Museum of Rovereto, the Mart. So if you're into it, you get a free ticket to visit the museum. You get this 30-minute session of this study. Here's the QR code. They're looking for people right in this moment. It's going to last only in July. So if you would like to do it, they said it's between 18 and 30 years old, but I think if you're 31 or 35 or 40, maybe it's even fine. They might specify that in the form. They didn't say so. So if you would like to, I think it's a nice occasion to see how perception might change regarding art.
And now it's time to travel back in time. This is a picture from, it was 221?
22.
22. It was right after pandemic. And we were having an open day for Speck&Tech here at Impact Hub. And
we did it again.
We did it again, yes. We did it again last week. We were here again. And we asked you if you wanted to participate through a form. Some people came, they joined us. We spent the day together trying to craft new ideas for the association. Some of the people are already here helping us.
And as you can see, we're around 15 people in the room. And then some 4 or 5 people were in the kitchen baking stuff.
Yeah, we were making tons of pizzas.
We were 14 people and we prepared 24 pizzas. And the quality was kind of close to professional.
Yeah.
It might turn into something.
Yeah, some people said that was better than Corallo.
So,
maybe for the next open day.
Proof. That was the result. Some people having fun. This was Nicola. Next photo. After eating 24 slices of pizza and baking them also. Great, Nicola. After that, we actually did serious stuff. So in the afternoon, we were having a little workshop to see what are the areas where we can improve Speck&Tech and how people can actually help us. And some of the volunteers are here already. And for instance, we have Tommaso taking photos. This is a meme, actually. So
yeah.
Tommaso taking a photo of Tommaso being shot in. Amazing. And again, so everyone is trying to help out the way they can and to try to improve Speck&Tech.
I think that's it. And we are ready for the next talk. Here.
Yeah, this was the whole group. Next one.
Yeah.
So
there we have the photo group. Of
this was it looked like we were playing ping pong, but it was actually a pala per la pizza.
Yeah.
So professional one.
And that's it. So a big applause for our next speaker.
Yeah, James BRUSSEAU on stage.
Terrific. Well, thanks for coming. So, I would like to start with a question, and I'm not sure what the answer to this is. So, I'm imagining that you're in a perfect room, doing exactly what you want, with whatever supplies or people makes you happy. And while you're there, someone locks the room from the outside. You don't know that happened. So you just continue doing what you want to do. Now, the question I want to ask there is, okay, everything started out good. You were free. You decided to go into the room, do the things you wanted to do. But now you're trapped, doing what you want to do. Are you still free? I'm not sure what the answer to that question is, but it's an old question from the 17th century, from philosopher John Locke. I think it connects, though, with what I would like to talk about today, which is recommender algorithms. And when I say recommenders, I mean the tool that decides who comes up on your Tinder screen, or what job is flashed on your screen by LinkedIn, or what television show or series is queued up to run when you are just finishing a previous series. So there's this moment in Netflix, which I think all of us have experienced, where you're watching a series like this one, and you've come to the last episode of the last season, and just as it's ending, there is this. At the 0 moment, a next series starts to play. And if they time it perfectly, and that's what they do, that's what they're paid to do. If they time it perfectly, then I think the experience you have here is just like the experience of the locked room. You're getting what you want. You chose this. But now, it seems like, in a sense, you don't have a choice anymore. Right? You can't stop and think, well, wait a minute, do I want to watch another movie, or do I want to do something like read a book? You can't stop and think, you know what, maybe instead of watching these crime dramas, I would like to watch something else. It all happens so perfectly, so seamlessly, that you get what you want before you even realize that you're asking for something. You're locked in your own preferences, your own interests, your own desires and wishes. So I think something like that is the way that recommendation algorithms connect with this old philosophical thought experiment. And what I want to talk about today a little bit is how we can re-engineer recommendation algorithms to escape this problem. How we can refocus them to help us create new interests or generate new preferences instead of recycling those that we've already had. So that's the subject for today. I want to say that there's this problem with recommenders, that we're trapped in our current interests. And I want to say that the solution is, in some sense, to predict the unpredictable. Here's what I mean by that. The way prediction works for these recommenders is that it harvests your past. That's precisely what it does. The way prediction for Netflix occurs is they know what you liked in the past and they just put it forward to you in the future again. So if that's what prediction is, and if we're trying to create a new kind of recommender that escapes your interests, we're not only redesigning from inside what the recommender does, we're in a sense redesigning what a recommender is. We're going all the way down, we're going to change the logic of recommendation algorithms. So that's the level on which I want to talk. Now, how am I going to talk about this? I'm going to take 2 steps. The first step is, really quickly, I'm going to look at Netflix and see how they do recommenders. For many people in this room, you already know how this works, so we'll rush through that pretty quickly. Then we'll come to the core of what I want to present, which is how can recommenders be re-engineered. And I'll talk about that in 3 ways. First, I'll give a kind of general picture of the way I think recommenders can be changed. Then I'll give a set of philosophical concepts and ideas that I think underlie the way this kind of change could happen. And then finally, at step 3, I will look at some technical tools, so like vector embedding, that kind of stuff, your stuff. We'll look at some technical tools that I think give body to the kind of philosophical ideas that I'll talk about in the second part. Okay? So That's the plan. First, look how Netflix does it to get a sense of where we're at. Then try to think about a different way to do it in general, conceptually, and technically. All right? Okay. So, Netflix. What I'm going to want to say fundamentally, the key to everything I want to say is a philosophical distinction between, not going to spend too long on this, but between Plato, Aristotle, and the entire history of philosophy up into Hegel. They thought in terms of a logic of similarity and resemblance. What it meant to think for those philosophers was to locate and find how things were like other things. Then from Nietzsche, and moving toward what we are in the period we're in today, postmodernism, that logic flipped. And we tried to think about how we can understand reality in terms of differences, how things are fundamentally other or distinct from each other. And that transformation in the history of philosophy is exactly what I'm going to try to reenact for you with recommendation algorithms. So, Netflix. Netflix is an old school company. They work through the logic of similarity. They do it in two ways. The first is called content filtering. What they do is they take a movie and just reduce it to keywords. The keywords here are Harrison Ford, action-adventure, guy, middle-aged. Just about the same thing here. So how do you recommend a movie? You just add up all the keywords for this movie. Add up all the keywords for this movie that this person likes. And then just try to find the next movie that has the same keywords. That's it. Resemblance, similarity. Everything is the same. It's the way thought functions. Now, there's a more sophisticated version, collaborative filtering. And what they try to do here is, instead of looking for things that are identical in the movies themselves, they try to find people who are identical, right? So one way that you want to find identical people is they like the same movies. Good start. Then you find they're both males. You find they're both young males. They both look like they're from maybe near where I live, New York City. They both look like, right, on and on you go. If you can find people who are similar, again, it's the same logic. If you can find people who are similar, almost the same, and you can line up the movies of one, then you can suggest to the other. Okay, so that's the way Netflix does it. Now, I mean, are the people at Netflix completely blind to the idea that they keep doing what all of us have felt? They keep recommending to us the same movies we've seen over and over again? No, of course not. They've tried to solve this problem. Right? They're aware of the fact that they're caught in this logic of repetition. But the way they do it, the way they solve their problem, just repeats the cause of the problem itself. They have two tools. The first is what they call noise-based injection. I love the jargon. Noise-based injection means they just show you a random movie. Right? They've been showing you too many action adventures, so they just take a random thing from their catalog and put it in your list. The other thing they do is they say, okay, if we keep recommending these action-adventure, to recommend something new and different to a user, like me, we will just go down the list to movies that are less like those that are on the top. And so they take one from down the list and push it up. That might help, but it's the same logic. The way they find a movie is by thinking in terms of resemblance. What is it that is like those things he or she has seen before? Okay, that's the logic we're trying to escape. I'm calling this logic because what they have is collaborative filtering. I'm going to call this antagonistic filtering. And as I said, we're going to look at this in three different ways. First, kind of as an introduction, as I've already introduced, I want to try to think in terms of difference, in terms of how things are other or separate or distinct. Here's an example. We always, for this system, we always want to start from difference. So instead of having users that are similar, two guys who are of the same age, man and woman, maybe from Europe and from New York. Different tastes in movies. We try to get people who are as distinct and different and removed as possible. And then, after the difference is established, then we look for a kind of similarity. Like maybe these people who are so completely different in so many ways, they speak different languages, live in different continents, but maybe they both really like Japanese restaurants. Maybe. And maybe that one link is enough to indicate that there's something that resonates between them. And maybe some of the movies that this person likes will work for this person. It will work not because they're the same, but because in some sense, again, they resonate. Here's an example I just got last week from someone. I was at a conference on philosophy and computing. I gave a presentation very similar to this, and someone said, you know what you should do? You should use this conference as a test case. Because at this conference, it was an international conference, so we had people come from all over the world, all different ages, all different languages, but we had this one really intense similarity, is that we were all into philosophy and computing. So you wonder if maybe that would be a way for me to learn about new kinds of films that I had not been exposed to, or new sorts of music that I had not heard before. I mean, of course, it's always easy. I mean, it's always easy to find something I haven't heard or known before. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to introduce something to me with a little better chance of random. We're trying to say, look, there's a real reason to think that James BRUSSEAU might like this movie or this music, which is outside the scope of his usual interests. And so maybe something like this would be an example of how you could use difference before similarity. So what I'm proposing, and this is the end of the first, I said there are going to be 3 steps here. This is the end of the first step. What I'm proposing is that instead of starting with similarities, start with differences between people. Then find some similarity and recommend between the people. And the purpose is to open up a new range of interests, to get someone involved in a different kind of music. You know, it's not just one new song, but a whole different genre of songs, a whole different kind of music that they would have not have thought of finding on their own. Okay, so this is the process, this is the goal. All right, that's a big overall picture. The next 2 steps are, let's look at some philosophical ideas underneath it, and then some technical ideas that echo the philosophical ideas. Okay. So the philosophical ideas, what is the intuition here? Well, the intuition is opposites attract. Right? We've all had that experience, romantically or in some other way, that you get invited into the life of someone whose life and background is completely different than yours. But this, in my case, it would be this woman. She introduces me because her life is so different from mine. You know, she introduces me to whole new kinds of music or to whole new kinds of things to eat. Right? So I think something like that human experience is what we're trying to get. That's the intuition here. That's what we're trying to get with these recommenders. Here's a different way of thinking about it in terms of this idea I was talking about earlier, similarity and difference. If you look at these 2 paintings, this is Netflix. This is the way Netflix works. Right? From Caravaggio to Van Gogh is they're just looking for the same, it's the same woman with slightly different coloring. This is like Indiana Jones and then Mission Impossible. You can see it's the same thing. Just slightly different actors, slightly different plot, slightly different place. But it's the same. Whereas by contrast, when you go from Caravaggio to Picasso, it's a completely different experience. I mean, maybe not for us because we've seen these paintings before, but if you show this to a child, that the child will say, wait a minute, these things have nothing to do with each other. They're completely different. It's only later that the child will see, oh, wait a minute, I see There are eyes and a nose, right? So this is a woman and this is a woman. So something like this is a difference that you can feel, I think, in your own life that corresponds with this more technical difference that I'm talking about in recommender systems. Right? There's recommending from one movie to another which is similar, and there's recommending from one to the other which starts from difference. And the human sensation you have when that happens, right? This is like accuracy. This is how people in your world measure accuracy. Oh, it's very close to this one. These two paintings are very close. But this is something more like curiosity or provocation. So the kind of recommender system I'm talking about is not one that is going to be measured by accuracy. Doesn't have anything to do with it. It's going to be measured by the degree to which it is provocative, or to the degree to which it stokes curiosity. Right? So there are different ways of measuring the success of these two kinds of recommenders. Okay. This is an important one. Here what I'm trying to show is an idea that I've spent many hours debating with computer scientists, trying to show that different is not the same as less resemblance. Those are two completely distinct concepts. So you can see going from here to here, there are degrees of difference, like full, 3/4 full, half full, 1/4 full, empty. And anything that goes along this line, it's true that it moves along a line of similarity and resemblance. But there's also this other line. There's this line where things are different, they're moving, but their different distance between these two things doesn't change. That's critical, because these are things which are different in the authentic sense. They're truly different. They're different in a way that does not mean less similar. They are other. They are unconnected with the movies you normally see. Then later, when we get to the technical part in about 5 minutes, 10, this is what we're going to be looking for. These movies, not the ones that are more distant or less different. Let's say what you really like is Indiana Jones movies. So it's not that we're going to look for ones that are kind of different or a lot different or something like that. No, we're going to look for things on this line. Things that have no relation with Indiana Jones. They're not more different or less different. They're just other. That's the aim of the kind of recommender system that I'm proposing. Okay, I talked about this idea of resonance a little bit. Like I said, sometimes someone meets someone who's very different, but even though they have nothing in common, they still get along together. Right? Well, I mean, the same thing happens with food. It's a common experience. I mean, we all know that white wine goes with fish and red wine goes with meat. But there's no logic to that. I mean, wine is not similar to food. But for some reason, this resonates with this, even though they're completely different things. And white wine does not resonate with this, even though they're different in the same way. Similar thing goes the other way. Right? So the point I'm trying to make here is, here's a way you can see how things that are different can resonate with each other. Just like I talked about way back here, right? This idea like the similar taste in restaurants. Somehow, even though these are two completely different people, they have a resonance like white wine and fish. That's what tells you that there might be some connection. And that might be the reason to recommend this person's movies to that person's movies. Okay. Okay, so that was the philosophical part. Now we're going to do the technical part. 4 different strategies. The one I like, I think, is the orthogonality strategy, but we'll look at all of them quickly. Okay, so as I just said, like the resonance, I guess I could have just shown this slide. The resonance is this. Right? Something fits here, but it doesn't fit here. And there's no logic to that in terms of similarity. This is completely, it's not, this and this is not similar, but somehow it goes together in a way that this and this does not. That's what we're trying to find when we say we recommend movies from her to him. We're trying to find who is the person who's different from her in the same way that white wine is different from fish. That's what we're looking for. That's what we want to find. And if we can find that person, then we can recommend back and forth between them. And if we can filter out the person, the two who are together, like white wine and fish, from all the other people who are together like white wine and red meat, then we can do what I'm calling cross-domain recommendation. Then we can create serendipity without using randomness or logic of similarity. Okay, so that's one technical way to think about it. Second technical way to think about this, this is a technique which is used much more in the field of political science. People who are interested in filter bubbles, especially. You're talking about that. People, as you know, recommender systems that have news frequently channel everyone into the pro-left, some pro-left candidate, everyone else into some pro-right candidate. How can you get people exposed to information from one to the other side? This technique is frequently used in that field. I think it can be adapted for the kind of recommendations that I'm talking about. So you could think this is a person with all his or her movies. This is another person with all his or her movies. You just cluster all the ones that appeal to this person and that person. You find that there's this just nearest neighbor stuff. You find that there's these different clusters. And then you say, okay, if we're trying to introduce this person to new kinds of movies, then we've got to find someone like this or like this and share movies across from them. How do we do that? We would look for movies that are kind of in the bridge, kind of in between. Okay. So that's a second technical strategy for doing what I'm talking about. Okay, third technical strategy. I don't love this one, so we're just going to kind of jump over it. I'm not sure I even believe in it. It would be the idea that first you get a vector that shows you in your taste space the kinds of things that you like, the kinds of movies that you like, or people like you like if you want to expand it. And then you look in the ones that are the opposite, and you try and find something. You would go back to the cross-domain kind of example we had. You would try and find something in these users which would indicate to you this would be a good choice. I'm not sure this one really works. It has to be there theoretically, because if you think about the ones who are for you, against you, and orthogonal, like we're going to do next, I have to cover this, but I don't think it works. The one that I do like is this one. So this is the orthogonality answer. This is where you just map people's interests on taste space, in a taste space, which is exactly what Netflix is already doing. So we don't need new technology. We don't need any new breakthroughs. We just take what we're already doing. But instead of recommending people, let's say this is me, recommending movies that are out here in this area, in this area of taste space with other movies and other people who resemble this kind of enjoyment in movies. Instead of that, we map which are the kind of movies that I like. We map which are the kind of movies that I don't like. And then we map which are the kinds of movies that me, and maybe we say people like me, simply haven't been exposed to. Which are the kinds of movies, when we look out there, don't appear in these vector representations of my taste or the tastes of people, if you want to go back to collaborative filtering, the tastes of people who are like me. I think that this is a way that you can graphically imagine the conceptual philosophical idea that I discussed earlier. If you can find these movies, the ones that are not attached to the things you like or the things you dislike, both for you and for those who are like you perhaps, then maybe those are the places we should look to make recommendations. Okay, so for those of you who love formulas, there's some formulas. We're not going to go into them now. Last thing on the technical question. For what I'm proposing, what counts as success? Well, first, I mean, obviously, I'm the first to admit, 99% of the time, when you crash down on your sofa, what you want is a movie which is just like all the other ones you've already liked. You're tired, you've had a long day, you don't want to deal with it, just give me something simple. So of course that's true. I'm only talking, all this long discussion I've had, is only for those few times, maybe in the month, when you say, you know what, I really want to experiment. And what I'm proposing is a way of thinking about how you can do that experimentation, which is better than what we have. Because what we have is basically a coin flip. What we have is basically randomness. So if I can just beat that metric, if I can use these tools which I've discussed just to do a little better than a lottery selection, then I think that we can make progress. And we can make progress in important ways, at least for philosophers. We can help people, to go back to the start, to be more free, to open up new ways of existing for themselves, to discover new kinds of interests and new forms of living. Fundamental freedom. So I think that's what's at stake. And then we can just do conclusions quickly. First, this is just a definitional conclusion. What we're looking for, what I've said is I'm looking for antagonistic filtering. I'm trying to get two things. I'm trying to get something which is unfamiliar, but which is also engaging, which you're curious about. Yeah. In a certain sense, this goes back to going way back to the thought experiment at the start. When the person is in the locked room, there are basically two definitions of freedom. One definition of freedom is it's the ability to get what you want, and you have that in the locked room. But the other definition of freedom is the ability to change what you want. That's what you lose in the locked room, and that's what you lose with contemporary recommenders, and that's what I'm trying to give back with antagonistic filtering. The ability to change who you are, change who you want. Second part of the conclusion, collaboration. You read a lot about how philosophy can help in the real world of computer coding, but you very rarely read how that can happen. What I've tried to show today is real people, me, you, real problem, recommender algorithms, repeating, recycling what we've already seen, real ways that you and I can actually work together in this world. So I think that's worth. I personally, I'm not sure if we did this in the introduction, but I have not one but two jobs at the same time, so I'm sort of filled up. But there are a lot of other philosophers like me who can work with you in ways like this. Then I've also briefly said that this is important not just on the individual level for freedom, but there are also questions here about filter bubbles and us being segregated into smaller and smaller groups. The question that arises is, how can we escape these bubbles that we're in of support for one or another candidate, or just like, it's the same thing, one or another kind of music. And I think I've offered a tool to help do that. And then last thing, there's money in this. Netflix knows that they are losing viewers because people get bored. They're looking for ways to turn users on to new parts of their catalog. Same goes for Spotify. Same goes for any kind of service which has a catalog to sell. So I think this kind of tool might be worth exploring simply on the economic level as well. Okay, that's enough.
Thanks, James, for your talk. A brief thing that is nice to mention as well is that James sent us an email May or April last year, 2024, since he's visiting professor here in Trento, coming from New York. So we waited till the very good moment to have you as a guest. So thank you for being here as well. A couple of questions. I would like to start from the previous one. Oh, look, hold on. It seemed that an informed human is less effective than an unbiased one. How is this possible?
It seems that, I'm sorry.
An informed human is less effective than an unbiased one. Is the one that was asked to Riccardo.
Okay. Can you fill me in a little bit? My short-term memory is as bad as my long-term memory.
All right, let's keep it for later. It was nice to restart. Let's go on. Can antagonistic filtering mitigate social media addiction, doom scrolling, for instance, while breaking the bubble created by recommender systems?
Yeah, the doom scrolling problem. I don't think so, no. I think that this is the opposite. I think this would make the doom scrolling problem worse. It depends on how you define doom scrolling, but I mean, the idea fundamentally is to open people up to new things that they're engaged with and interesting. So if doom scrolling just means you're just going randomly, well then yes, it solves that problem. So presumably it helps people engage with things that they want to be engaged in because it opens up their horizon. But it does keep them on, right? It does keep them on the platform. There's no doubt about that.
This is totally on a philosophical level. You haven't tasted it, right?
We've started some little tests with in some cases, yes.
All right, keep us posted. I think it's interesting. How do you measure provocation and curiosity?
Excellent questions. The only way that we have discovered to measure basically what is the success of the system so far is the degree to which it leads people to be interested in a new genre. So let's say it doesn't work. Curiosity is not really being stimulated if I just watch one movie about Japanese cooking. But if we can show that leap to this new kind of movie for me, which I never knew existed, led to an interest in other movies about Japan or about cooking. That is, if it opened up a new vista of movies that I engaged with, then that would be the success. The success is not just that I see one movie which is different, but that I am tuned into a whole new way of thinking about, or a whole new kind of movies that are interesting for me in my life.
All right. The audience is asking, how do you collect data about every person's cross domains? Doesn't it impact privacy?
It does, right. So when I sent, Francesco will tell you, that I sent an initial deck this morning which had like 500 slides or something like that. And then a panic. About 2 hours ago, I sent a much shorter deck, which you just saw. But on the long deck, that's one of the questions that comes up. There's no question about the fact that this is a giant privacy trade-off. You are giving up your privacy in order to get turned on to these new kinds of movies or songs or what have you. And so, also leading back to the presentation on manipulation, I am not claiming that this is some kind of salvation. I am not claiming this is an unadulterated improvement. It's more of a change. You get some things, but you're going to lose some other things too. And privacy is one of them.
And here we get to the good question. Isn't changing what you recommend still locking in the user in some way? I think the user is not going to choose freely as long as you recommend stuff to them.
Right, so in a certain sense, here's another problem, excellent question too, another problem with the idea. If what I'm saying makes sense, then it's not enough to just say, okay, well, one time I will get some new movies and be interested in that. That's not enough. As soon as I'm interested in those, then I have to go on and do the process again. So I'm kind of setting people up to be constantly changing. Which leads back to a philosophical perspective that I actually share, that what human existence is about is actually changing who we are constantly. So for me, the objection that is raised there is actually a solution. I like the objection. I think it's good, but the objection is correct, yes.
I think you showed an example that was similar, but some people are asking if you think a similar approach could be applied to relationships between people, not necessarily romantic.
Absolutely. I think that it happens all the time. That one of the reasons I'm here, if it's not worth doing, but if any of you did and looked back at my biography somehow, you would find that I teach in all kinds of different universities all over the world with no particular reason. Well, there is a reason. The reason is because I think that these kinds of openings happen in personal relationships of all kinds. So that's why I'm here. That's what I'm looking for, is to find new kinds of music. In Italy, new kinds of food, of course, and so on. And so what I'm trying to do is replicate that human experience on the level of recommenders. Yeah.
Thanks so much, James. Oh.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, yeah, right.
There's something like, for human, truth is absolute, so it's hard to tailor it to...
Yeah. Yeah, right. So we were talking about the very interesting point that he made in his presentation about how the AI does better than humans because the AI personalizes better, no doubt about it. But it also just seems to me that when humans make arguments, we try to convince someone of something, we just intrinsically try to not personalize. We think it's more noble or dignified to make an argument that convinces anyone, whether it's a man or a woman or young or old. So I think I was trying to say that there's just this human intrinsic value in what is transcendent. And the machine doesn't care about that. It just goes straight to specific points where they can manipulate, yeah.
All right, thanks so much. A warm applause. Yeah. All right, wrapping up the event. Couple of things before moving on. It's 9:48, and I don't know if you're hungry. We are somehow. There's gonna be speck and cheese, a large amount, since the feedback was increase the size and the portions. So also for veggie and celiac options, one of the things you raised was that we didn't have no gluten-free beer. We have this time, so if you are a celiac or whatsoever, please let us know. We have the beer for you as well. Otherwise, as we mentioned last time, we are gonna have BrewDog beer, which means in a few seconds we are gonna open up these cans and get flooded with this beautiful juice. And we're gonna have 5 different types of beer, 3 IPAs and a session IPA and a Lost Lager that is actually an IP lager, as people say. So enjoy, let us know if you liked it. We think it's a big upgrade for the variety and to get into new tastes if you haven't liked IPA beers before or if you would like to try something new.
Okay, so question, how can you support us? How can you support Speck&Tech? We still have some T-shirt left, the technical one. You can go to Sam over there and ask him for the T-shirts. There is the logo and the graphic that you already know. We still have the new one, the one from 2024. I don't know how many are
2025.
2025, sorry.
They last alive. Like this is from 2019, is all brand new. Some people are wearing the 2017, 2018, etc. They're very, very good materials. They last ages if you want to get one.
So it's a good investment for your wardrobe. And as usual, you also can donate money. We have accept coins. We have accept Satispay and
whatever
card payment.
For
if you want to pay €1, €2, €5, it's okay, whatever you want. And that's it. Basically, thank you for attending our events and enjoy the networking.
A couple of logistic
I was
things
forgetting about that.
Before moving on. First, we haven't published anything about the upcoming events, but we are working under the radar. End of September is going to be the first one that we're going to have mid-October, first part of November, and 9 or 10 December. There's going to be a big one that it's already in the making. So if you want to bookmark those 2 dates, but we're going to let you know further. We are at Impact Hub we are gonna go out now. It's 13 degrees, so wear your jacket. Joking. We wanted to have the aperitif outside, but it's kind of cold tonight, so we're gonna have it inside, which means dobbiamo muovere le sedie. So I want to ask, I need your help, and if you can stand up. If you're having such a chair, please fold it. If it is foldable, you fold it. The orange and the black foldable ones go at the entrance there next to Silvanus. You find that nice hairy guy on the right. If you have a foldable green one, they go here on the side behind this wall. If you have the wheelie yellow one, they go here in the corridor, and the wheelie black one as far as you can, like for die by, okay? Thanks so much, enjoy the summer, and we see you in September.